Good evening and welcome to Simsport International GT3 Championship Tier 1 Round 2 at Snetterton Circuit in the West Midlands in the UK. So joining me in the booth today is our very own Chris Hill. So he's going to be doing multiple duties this evening of sharing the comms box with me and also manning all of the cameras in the back end. So good evening to a very, very busy Chris Hill.
Good evening, and if I go quiet, Sam, you know full well I can't do two things at once. I'm a man. Just to correct you, Norfolk isn't in the West Midlands. Snetterton isn't in the West Midlands, it's in Norfolk.
Oh, sorry.
Come on, get your geography
I actually
right.
didn't have it written down. I had it written down as being in Norfolk. But yeah, I just had a mental brain fart there for a minute. You think I would have gotten it right after we were here last week for the Tier 2 guys. Gave us some really, really fantastic racing. Lots of interesting strategies. Bit of collisions, but overall relatively clean racing, and we're hoping that we're going to be treated to the exact same level of excitement tonight with our Tier 1 guys. So just to give you a rundown as to what happened in our race last time out. So we were at Hungary 2 weeks ago for the season opener, and in Pro, the winner for the race was Dave Jr., followed by John Baton in silver, and then our own Sem Spenkelink coming in third for the Pro class. So as that's our first race out, that is also our championship standings at the minute as well. Over in the semi-pro class, the checker flag was taken by Ryan Leach, followed by Justin DeLong, and Nick Vargas coming in third. So again, that's our championship standings for the semi-pro class as well. All of our podium drivers are here tonight, so everybody is going to be out on track duking it out to see who keeps their top places in the championship and who shuffles around. And as we saw with Tier 2 last week, lots of really, really close fighting all the way down the order. So lots and lots to look out for this evening. So we've got 30 drivers in the server at the minute. They're just finishing up their practice, and while they're doing that, Chris, shall we take a look at the infamous Snetterton circuit?
Absolutely. Take it away, Sam.
So, as we come down the main center straight, heading into turn 1 at Riches, as you can see, raining in the server when we did our laps, but hopefully it should be clear for the race. As you come out of Riches, you've got very, very short squirt down to the hairpin of turn 2 at Montreal. And this is where our famous treed man is sat in the background. You just see him appearing off to the side there. Really, really sharp right hairpin turn. Back down to turn 3 at Palmer. Bit of a meandering left corner, and then coming out onto a somewhat straight but not overly straight track, just heading up into the midfield of the circuit, up to turn 4 at Agostini. Finding your braking point for this corner can be a little bit tricky, especially considering those brake boards on the side are all destructible and get taken out pretty early on in a race. So this ever-tightening left-hand corner that comes down into turn 5 at Hamilton. Not really requiring too much of a slowdown to come round Hamilton, but then you come into turn 6 at Augie's, which can be very deceptive. Coming in, it doesn't look that tight, but it does tighten very, very quickly, although you've got quite a decent amount of runoff on the left-hand side. Really, really easy to get track warnings at that particular section. We've got a little bit of breathing room into the wide right-hand corner of Williams onto the back Bentley straight. So you've got lots of time to think about your first half of the lap. Nice big long straight. The slipstream does play quite a bit of a factor here, but you've got to be careful to choose your braking point very, very carefully as you come up to the bridge. Very, very slight bend in the road beyond the bridge at turn 8 for Brundle, but then you're immediately faced with the 90-degree right at Nelson. And then you've got to prepare yourself for the infamous turn 10 bomb hole. As we were discussing last week out, nothing to do with bombs, simply because it's a disastrous corner, very, very difficult, especially on bikes due to the big dip right at the apex. Then we come round the ever-continuing and never-ending turn 11, Coram. Need to find you some sort of marker for your braking point for the sharp left-hand 90-degree at Murray's for turn 12. Come back onto the main straight. Nice easy pit entry here. However, the brake boards for the pit entry hidden behind the pit wall, so very easy to miss them. And we did see a couple of stop-go 30s for speeding in the pit lane as a result of drivers not being able to see that brake board just in time. So overtaking can be quite challenging here. We did see a fair amount of it last race out, but qualifying is going to be quite important. So with that, I believe qualifying has now started. Everybody's pretty much done then their main lap, put in their first representative laps, and currently got Sem Spenkelink sitting up in that provisional pole with a 1:45.6. We have seen some quite quick lap times, certainly in the midweek practice server and also in the practice server before we went live today. I think we've seen lap times as low as a 45.3. So conditions quite optimum, very favourable for British racing. Overcast but with an optimum track. Ambient temperature is 24 with a track temperature of 30, so should see some really nice quick lap times as Dave Jr. and Clayton Bainey very quickly overtake Sam Spenkley, with Bainey currently up in that P1 position with a 4.56.
Just gone 0.2 of a second quicker, takes him back up to second place.
So Bainey didn't have a very good time out then last week. I thought he actually wasn't here last week, so I think this is going to be the first time that we're seeing Clay in competition this season out. So some of the other drivers may not be as familiar with his driving style. We're just on board with Jean Beton, currently sitting quite nicely up in P3, but he is currently 0.2 up on his time, which might put him up into P2, up onto that front row of the grid if he can maintain this advantage.
Yeah, I picked him up quite early in the lap here, Sam. So it's going to be a challenge to keep that 0.2, although he is doing it, he is keeping it 0.2.
Yeah, he's just coming through then the infield, just coming out of Augie's, heading into Williams at the minute, so still has a considerable amount of the lap left, but as you said, he was managing to keep that time. So still, as we're sitting on board with him, still 0.2 up. We're seeing quite a number of drivers starting to put some times in ahead of him. He's just dropping down the order a little bit. But this, if he does maintain this P.2, should still put him up into possibly P3 at the minute, if my maths are correct. This is just coming out of the final corner, heading down the center straight. So the start-finish line is a little bit late here, so you've got to hold your breath and wait.
He does jump up to
and that puts him.
Third place.
That does put him up to third. Fantastic lap. So who else is up on their times?
Obviously, I jumped on with Eric de Jong here. I think he's a newcomer to the championship. I think this is his first race. When I jumped on with him, he was up on his time. He's now not. I think he's just on a par with it. It is quite early in the lap again. So what I'll do is I'll try and find some drivers that are a bit later in the lap.
Just seeing that Chris Vickers play at 0.5 up on his time. Not sure whereabouts on track he is. So yeah, he's just coming out of Coram into Murray's. Has a fantastic Murray's, 0.6 up on his current time. So that should give him a good couple of places. And yeah, that puts him up to P15, so really good job from Chris.
The newcomer to the championship this season, Andres Kyalami.
Mad Goose Racing. I absolutely love a lot of the team names that we've got in the championship this season, and that is not the optimal racing line.
Hence why I jumped straight off. So who's quite well down tonight at the moment. one of our, I think he came second last time. I didn't defeat Vanya. No, he won actually.
Justin
No,
De Jong, he was second in semi-pro last round out. It was Ryan Leach that came in first, and Peter Vanier managed fourth in our last round out.
I'll stop making things up. That's why you're the main commentator, Sam, and I'm just here twiddling cameras and stuff like that. You've got facts that are correct. I've got facts that are completely incorrect.
I do have, you know, millions of sheets of paper in front of me with all sorts of facts and figures. The problem is that if I can actually find the figure that I'm looking for quick enough, so that it does actually sound like I know what I'm doing. So then it looks like a lot of people are struggling to improve on their lap times at the minute. I'm just looking up and down the timing board. Not many people are up on their existing times, so I'm just wondering if then the track is, you know, maybe going off a little bit. Wouldn't have thought so, but yeah, I would have expected to see a little bit more improvement from a lot of our drivers. But Muller gains himself a couple of places up into P6. Sander Vale, one of our Mode 11 drivers. I really miss the zebra stripe livery from Mode 11 from last season. But I've got to say, I am liking this very, very bright electric green on the Ferrari. Really suits that car, although I'm pretty sure Ferrari would want to have me flailed for saying that.
Sander, if you recall, was in a Mercedes last time out, so he has given up all his points to swap cars to a Ferrari because it feels like he'd be a bit more competitive in that. So time will tell. He's currently 0.3 up on this lap.
Looking at the rest of the circuits that we've got coming up in the season, that might not be a bad shout. The Ferrari is quite strong at Kyalami. Definitely very good at Watkins Glen. Not too sure how strong it is at Suzuka. I've not driven it around Silverstone. So yeah, might be very well worth him giving up the points. Although having said that, how many points has he actually?
He did have 7.
Given up? He did have 7.
So it's almost like I know this stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you had that one to hand already. But yeah, so 7 points for in exchange for a stronger car. Might have been quite a good shout. When we'll keep an eye on that one as the season progresses. See how that decision pans out for him. So we're just on board with Justin De Jong, currently in P8, but 0.3 up on his current time. That should put him up to maybe P5 if he can manage it. Although, as I say, that he's lost a little bit of time coming out of Williams onto the Bentley straight. But is trying to claw some time back. Doesn't gain any time coming out of Bombo, but starting to make up a little bit of time coming around Corm. So he's come back up to that 0.3 level. It did go a little wide coming out of Murray's. I think this is going to give him a couple of places. Yeah, puts him up to P5 for the Dutch understeer squad.
Flash roller is 0.5 up. I was, until I clicked on him. Just jump up to the 21st there though. Someone we're not seeing tonight. My favourite, Mr. Baz Van Mellis.
Mr. Bass, yeah. And I'm loving this two-sided livery that they've developed for this season. really, really, really nice homage to the old Le Mans UNO Clinic team. Is it my imagination, or was last race out that livery was actually double-sided? That there was one branding on one side and there was wasn't there something else on the other side?
I don't think there was.
Am I imagining things? For some reason I thought the other side was Johnny Walker. But yeah, I must be off on a different planet, because yep, then that livery is not double-sided, but is definitely still really, really nice, and that definitely suits that car very well. It's very menacing, and a livery that doesn't look menacing, nice and bright and happy. Sam Spankelik, Dark Sky Racing, although his livery is anything but dark. Really, really nice cyan and gold combination. Actually works really well. I wouldn't, if you had told me those colors together, I probably would have thought, nah. But that does look really, really nice. I'm currently 0.3 up on his time as well, so.
Someone I've not seen in the standings tonight is his teammate Nard Koch. Can't see him on the list anywhere.
No.
We have a bit of a disaster at the first race.
Yeah, and he did have a bit of a difficult race at Hungaroring, to say the least. Although I think Sam has just gone a little bit wayward at track limits there.
He's invalidated his lap. Quite right.
Back on board with Andreas Galen, currently sitting in P12. It does look like we have most drivers out on track at the minute, with 1:45 left in qualifying. Anyone who starts on a lap now will definitely have time to finish it and maybe get another one in, but not many people seem to be improving.
Andreas may improve by one spot here. And does.
Yeah. Dennis Workman currently down in 30th position. He's been struggling a bit. He has put in quite a number of laps, but currently sitting right at the bottom of the order, although he is 0.2 up on his current time.
Quicker flip to Nelson Abranosa. He's down in 29th at the moment, but he is half a second up on this lap.
Yeah, but at bottom of the grid does seem to be a little more spread out, so this should give him a couple of places, but not a whole lot. Yeah, that only gains him one place, and I find that really, really disheartening when it happens to me. You put in an amazing lap, you think, yeah, I've gained half a second on my previous time, and you look at the timing board, it's like, oh, that only got me one place.
Dennis should improve his time here. He has. He's still in last, but he did improve by 1.5 seconds there.
Yeah, I'm noticing a lot of drivers have really improved over the off season, and it's definitely making the competition certainly in this tier very, very strong and at the top end. Just as we're just looking down, all the way down to P15 currently. So all of the top 15 drivers, all within 1 second of each other, so it just goes to show just how tight the competition is in this tier. As Benny improves his time and matches his quickest time in the practice server before then the race of a 1:45.3, which is an absolutely amazing lap. Looking up the real life lap record around Snetterton earlier, and it's a 1:46.1, so a good portion of our drivers absolutely shattering that real life record, and that was done just this year actually, in a McLaren 720. So that is qualifying complete. Chris, what's your expectation for the race? When you gonna go out on a limb and are you gonna call it?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say I'm going to be busy. Got a funny feeling I might be having to find some replays here, there and everywhere. But I think Clyde's first race of the season looks quite promising. Up there with, I think Dave Jr. was in second, wasn't he?
Yes, he was, followed by Luca Filippi.
So I think those three may get out in front and pull a bit of a lead. It's going to be exciting to see what's happening in the midfield. Who can rise above it? Our fastest semi-pro there was Justin De Jong, who's fifth on the grid, I think, if I'm reading this correctly. Yep. So yeah, we've got a mixture of semis and pros. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, then the fact that Justin has outqualified Ryan Leach has put him in a good position in terms of the championship. Ryan did edge out Justin De Jong in our last round, so it does currently sit on top of the podium in the overall championship standings. But there's only 4 points between them, so if Justin can stay out in front, that could be a championship leader change by the end of the race. But definitely don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves really early in the season. We've still got plenty of racing to go. So from Snetterton this week, we're going to head out to Kyalami next round out. So tier 2 guys will be there next week, and tier 1 will be there the week after. And then we head out to Misano, then followed by Watkins Glen, Silverstone, and we end the championship at the infamous Suzuka, which is a track that I just cannot drive for the life of me, and I'm constantly killing myself at Spoon. But as for Snetterton, out today, it's going to be really interesting to see. Oliver Anderson has just jumped into chat saying that it's raining in the server.
He's such a sport. I knew that.
So yeah, could make things extra interesting and very spicy. Now we'll get to see who's got the driving finesse to be able to handle a car on a wet track. I don't know how much wet practice anybody got in midweek, but yeah, gonna be interesting. Chris, how much time have we got before the formation lap?
1 minute 30-ish.
1 minute 30. Okay. So, while we are waiting for the formation lap, let's just take a quick rundown through our starting grid. So, in row 1, we've got Clayton Banny lining up alongside Dave Jr. Row 2, we've got Luca Filippi alongside John Beton. Then we've got Justin DeLong and Sam Spenkelik lining up on row 3. Behind them is Ben Mullard alongside Ryan Leach. Then Regan Mitchell sits alongside Peter Finier. P11, we've got Andreas Galen alongside Andrew Richardson. And Danny de Swart signs up alongside Jutes Medema Then we've got Eric De Jong alongside Ryan Walker. In P17, we've got Nick Vargas lining up alongside Nikolai Schroeder. Martin van der Kraan lined up alongside Chris Vickers. Then we've got Marcel V and Mike Ambrinosa. And then in P23, we've got Tim Kroll and Sander Vale. Oliver Anderson in P25 alongside Dennis Verhoeven. And Bas van Millis and Patrick Tractor. And on the back row, we've got Nelson Ambrinosa alongside Dennis Berkman.
I'm supposed to see that.
Alright, we have some
Perfect timing. I think we should just be starting to pull away for the formation lap. And yes, it is looking at the track conditions of being damp. It looks like the rain has only just started, but is scheduled to get a lot heavier 10 minutes out, and still going to be raining halfway through the race. So I don't know about you, Chris, but when I'm sitting on the grid and the conditions suddenly change on me, are you frantically changing setup, or do you just leave it in the lap of the racing gods?
I tend to leave it in the lap of the racing gods. I can't think on my feet as quick as some of these guys can. You'll have people tinkering with the setup, spotting that it's going to rain, and have the ability to do that and adapt as well. So even if they get the setup slightly wrong, they're soon quickly on it and coping with all weather conditions.
Yeah, and it does mean it is going to make lap 1 very, very interesting, because now the grip conditions, brake points, all of that is suddenly going to change, and they're going to have no reference for that going into a lap 1 of an actual race. Everyone's going to be tight together. It's going to be interesting to see who's had some wet weather practice in the fortnight since the last race, or if anyone's just been completely caught out and are having to completely wing it. You can quite easily throw a relatively safe wet setup made by the game, but you're not going to have a reference point for tire pressures, which since the last update, the 1.9, is now a lot more sensitive than it used to be. So this I think is going to be really, really interesting, and it's definitely going to throw a bit of a cat amongst the pigeons. Although I've just noticed Nick Vargas currently showing as being in the pit lane.
You're quite right, there he is.
So don't know if he was too busy making some last-minute changes to the setup and didn't click drive in time. Does mean that Nick will be starting from the pit lane, and worse yet, he will not be released from the pit lane until the last car has passed. So he is going to be a considerable way down the field, but will have free air. And if there's any coming togethers, as we can politely put it, in lap 1, then it may give him a little bit of an advantage to be able to pick his way through that. But Nick is definitely going to have a lot of work left for him to do this evening. Alright, cars just starting to form up side by side. Little bit of last minute tire warming there by Dave Jr. They just come up to the start line, and we are now green. Everyone seems to get a nice start, although everyone is probably going to be really, really taking it easy, nice and clean through turn 1. Nice through the hairpin, although I can see some one or two drivers off in the background, just coming out of the hairpin.
Classic undercrown.
Yeah, and it's extremely treacherous getting onto the grass at any point during a race, but worse when it's damp, because these cars will have zero traction whatsoever on wet grass. It is like Bambi on ice.
Clyde has managed to keep his pole position. He hasn't kept his pole position because we're racing now, aren't we? He's managed to convert
Yes.
his pole position into a race lead on the first lap without losing any positions. I told you I'm no good at this, Sam. Why did he encourage me to join in?
Well, and everybody looks like they, keeping nice and clean and sedate. However, last race with our tier 2 guys, it was lap 2 that everything went a little bit awry. So something that I see quite often happening in championship races, everyone does take their time on lap 1 and then think, right, okay, we've survived lap 1, as we see Dennis de Swart facing the wrong way with lots of oncoming traffic. Really, really scary position to be in. There's not really anything you can do. Danny did a really, really good job there of getting his car off track and turned around. So really good job of the rejoin there by Danny. So just on board with Clay Penny. Still got Dave Jr. really close behind. That gap only 0.3 of a second, although they are both pulling a considerable gap to P3 with Sam Spankelink, who's a good 2 seconds behind the current leaders.
Tag at the back. Right, lap 2.
Yeah, it then does seem to be lap 2, although I have noticed we've got a couple of cars in the pits of Nick Vargas and Oliver Anderson, so my guess is fixing damage after an initial coming together on lap 1, although then the good thing is that it does mean that they will clear their pit stop requirement. There's no pit window for this race, but everybody is required to do a mandatory pit stop for tires only. So drivers can fuel for the entire race, although seeing as it is 30 seconds mandatory to change tires, there's really no point carrying around a full tank of fuel. You might as well just fuel for half the race and refill while you're taking tires. It's pretty much fuel time if you're changing tires as well. So we're just on board with Andrew Richardson in that really close battle in the mid-pack. Currently sitting in P10, although it looks like he's got Justin Medema having a bit of a go, a bit of a look up the outside. He is going to be coming in around the outside of turn 1.
That was
just a little bit of coming together.
That was actually Andrew Richardson and Andrew Scarlett.
Oh, it was Garland in the
yeah.
other car.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oliver's in chat saying that he's had a disconnect.
Oh no.
So I don't know whether he's going to rejoin. We'll find out.
He's got plenty of time to do a rejoin and get going.
He's showing that he's driving now, so that's a good sign.
Yeah. There's absolutely nothing you can do about having a disconnect, and as with any technical failure in the game, but it's really, really good to see Oliver rejoined and back racing. You have no idea what can potentially happen in front. Also gives him a sneaky opportunity to tweak setup as he came back into the server. So could put him in a good position, although he is still going to have to serve his mandatory pit stop as the disconnected coming back into the server has not counted as an official pit stop.
Dennis Worman's done well here to get up 12 places.
Yeah,
He qualified last, didn't he?
yeah, that's an excellent result for Dennis. So, you know, just taking advantage of some of the initial offs and a couple of people finding a bit of the wet grass. Track is still showing as damp, so it's not full on wet yet. I think, you know, I would expect most of these drivers have taken wet tires, seeing that the rain is going to be persisting for at least 30 minutes. But then there is a potential that those wet tires could be getting a little bit on the warm side at this point, because the track isn't full wet. You can see a bit of a dry line at the minute, but there is that option for people to come off the racing line and get a little bit more moisture on those tires, just to cool them down a little bit.
You see goes past Chris Vickers there. It's a bit wary there. Managed to control it.
Yep, very, very well held. But yeah, then those curbs in the wet, they can get very, very slick, especially the green. So definitely want to be careful how much track limits you take on a wet track like this. It's a GT3. All of these cars have big, massive wings that you can eat dinner off of.
The camera's in such a bad place.
It is right in the way of the camera position. They should put it on top of the wing instead.
No consideration for us broadcasters.
No, none whatsoever. As just saying that Clayton Banney does have the fastest lap at the minute with a 1:52.3, so considerably different lap times than what we saw in qualifying. But he has started to pull a bit of a gap on Dave Jr.
Young way going past Chris Vickers on battling into the hairpin.
I was going to say he's not quite got it done yet, but yeah, Chris has to give way going into the hairpin. Very, very nicely done, the two of them going side by side in, but Chris was doing a smart thing and not fighting that position too much. Just behind Chris is Jonathan for Simsport Racing for this in 2015. Very, very different story from where he was at this point of the race, last race out. Finished P2 on the podium, now sitting in P13. So got a bit of work to do.
It's a bit of an understatement, that's something. A lot of work to do.
I'm trying to be positive. We know that drivers sometimes listen in on the broadcast, although I don't know why anyone would want to listen in on the broadcast while they're racing. But good luck to anyone who is.
Just madness.
It is madness. I can barely talk and race at the same time. Which is always why races that I stream tend to go horribly wrong.
Who else is battling?
This mid pack seems to be the closest battles that are on track at the minute. This pack between P10 down to P16, all very, very tightly packed in together. Interestingly enough, the track is still only showing us down after 10 minutes of what looks like fairly consistent rain. Even though it's light, I'm surprised that the track is still showing us down and hasn't progressed to full wet yet.
It's 29 degrees track temperature, so warm for this time of year.
Definitely for the UK, yeah. Bit of a brave move on the brakes by Regan Mitchell there coming into Augie's. Does manage to get it slowed up in time.
It's so hard to decide where to put the camera. There we go. We've got Eric de Jong, Andrew Richardson battling now. Justin de Jong not far behind.
Do we know whether Eric and Justin are brothers?
I don't know.
Do we know? Do we know if they're racing for the same team at least? I don't have that. That is one piece of information I don't have. Is the team roster.
I could possibly go and find it, but I can't do two things at once. You know that? Don't send me on task.
Well, the easy thing to do would be to jump on board with Eric, and then jump on board with Justin. Although, Justin, is that Justin? That's just
that's
no,
Andrew
that's
Richardson.
Andrew Richardson. It looked like he might have had a little bit of a tap from behind just to send the car around, but he's gonna have his work cut out now. Nice rejoin though. I have a tendency of spinning it around on wet grass with just the slightest bit of throttle input. Eric de Jong is with Hennick Racing. And Justin DeLong is with Dutch Understeer Squad. So they are racing for different teams. So we'll have to ask in Discord midweek to see what the connection there is. If there is any, it could just be coincidence.
It may very well be.
Unlikely, but could be. Regan Mitchell, Brabham Esports, sitting in P11. To be honest, I'm actually really surprised to see Regan in the mid-pack. He was a lot further up than the order last season. So I don't know if maybe he's taken a bit of time off or away from the rig over the summer. This is something that our drivers need to be doing on a regular basis to stay competitive. I took a break over the summer break, and I'm consistently about 5-6 tenths down on my sort of average spring lap time. So that does take a little bit of time to get back up to speed. But Regan just up on board with Ryan Leach from Pit Stop UK, and I believe that is his teammate up in front of Ben Muller.
Yes.
It is. Good guess, considering that the cars are very considerably liveried in that very, very striking blue and yellow.
So because I've had a bit of free time to not speak there, I managed to find, I did get a DM from Eric de Jong. He is teamed up with Justin de Jong from the Dutch Understeer Squad.
Okay, so they are teammates, but he's not hinted as to whether there's any relation between Justin and Eric.
No.
No.
Didn't go quite that far when he asked me if he could join the championship.
That's fine. I shall make it my mission to find out in the Discord midweek and report back next race. So we're on board with Tim Kroll, K2K Racing, currently in P18. And battling Dennis Workman just ahead. As we mentioned earlier, Dennis having a fantastic drive from last, currently up to P17, and is under a considerable amount of pressure at the minute. But is putting a considerable amount of pressure on Sander Vale, although just gets a little squirrely coming out of Murray's there onto the start-finish straight. Has managed to keep the advantage over Tim Paul, although Tim a lot later on the brakes there than Dennis in the Mercedes. I think the Lamborghini does tend to be quite good on its brakes, although did I just see some cars deciding to pirouette in the grass?
Sander Vale,
Sander Vale.
Andreas Garlin again. Andreas having a bit of a nightmare of a first race.
Yeah. Sander Vale kind of struggling a little bit this racing as well.
I just wonder if he's only just recently switched cars, so I wonder how much practice he's actually had in the Ferrari. And being thrown in, pardon the pun, but in the deep end with the wet conditions, he probably hasn't had chances to practice in the wet.
Yeah, I don't know how experienced he is in the Ferrari. I'm just looking at the practice server timing board, and it does show that he put in 34 laps in the Ferrari during the midweek practice. Though it does look like he was struggling to find a comfortable balance with the cars. Out of those 34 laps, only 14 were valid. So, yeah, and I would guess that quite a bit of that is getting used to a new car. And yeah, no idea how much practice in the wet he's had with it. And if he's driven it in other series, other championships, or just other public lobbies, just to see how he gets on with the car. We're starting to see a couple more early pit stops. Nick Vargas, Aaron Richardson, and Fast Animals all completing their pit stops so far. So quite early on in the race. Again, interestingly, the track is still only showing as damp. So no doubt people are going to be changing over to staying on wet tires. So it's, I think it would be too much of a risk to go on to attempt to drive these conditions in dry. But it does look like this rain is going to be steady, certainly until the dying 10 minutes of the race. Forecast at the minute for the next 30 minutes is for this light rain to continue unabated.
Just quickly watch this overtaking manoeuvre for. I'm trying to remember who it is. Dennis Verhoeven, is it? Yeah, against Danny de Swart and Nikolai Schroeder now capitalising. Has he made the move stick? He hasn't. Got two places before one corner.
Yeah, I'm going to say Danny de Swart did a very good job of keeping that car collected. Got a very slight tap from the back end from Dennis Verhoeven, but managed to keep it all pointing in the same direction, or else that could have ended up being quite disastrous and potentially collecting all four of those cars.
Shout out to the YouTube chat. Hello everybody. Just noticing, sorry for not keeping abreast of this, but Mike Abranosa in there saying he's had to retire because his PC started to overheat.
Oh, that's never good. I hope you're able to diagnose what the issue is, Mike, and that we'll see you out for the next round.
If he needs to borrow a sledgehammer, I know where there's a few.
So, and as you predicted, this mid-pack tends to be where all of the action is. Clay Banny, just looking at his time up at the top, 4 seconds back to Jave Jr. So Clay is just sitting there happily lapping on his own, just running his own race, not really having to to worry. So all the action happening in this mid-pack at the minute. I'm just on board with David Paul, and I think that is Dennis Workman behind him. No, in front of him. So it's Dennis Workman in the I want to call it Skittles colored. That yellow and green fade does just remind me of Skittles.
We'll get a good view of it. We won't do when I focus on Tim.
There we go. So yeah, as we mentioned, really great drive from Dennis into P15. Starting from the back, so really good job there. Just checking back in with the YouTube chat, Mike saying that it's he thinks it's a result of stupid updates from NVIDIA. So one of those, either NVIDIA IQ or SimHub, all updated today. So one of those is likely causing an issue. Well, I hope you all the best for diagnosing which one it is, and hopefully it's something that you can get sorted out. Just looking further up the order, we've got a tight battle between P6 and P7. Peter Pinier, 0.4 of a second behind Ben Mollard, and both of them catching up to Ryan Leach in P5.
Oh, as Dennis scores off. Nice Tim through that.
There we go, picture in picture, nicely done.
I wasn't looking for it, honest.
Don't worry, I won't challenge you, and then mention that Regan Mitchell is also now 2.2 behind Eric De Jong in P10 and P11. Won't give you too much.
There you go.
There we go. He's on it like Sonic. So these are our two main battles that are on track at the minute. Although as we're starting to come down, getting close to the halfway point, I'm going to surmise that a lot of drivers are going to start considering pit stops in the next few minutes. I know with these conditions being damp and not full wet, wet tires are probably going to be complaining a little bit now. Doing 25 minutes in not exactly the conditions that they were designed for, so probably going to be putting a few tires out there that are overheating a little bit. Just not giving it the performance and grip that they need to be doing when it's a full wet track. I'm actually wondering if we're ever going to get onto a full wet track for this race. I'm surprised that it's still down 25 minutes in with constant rain.
They've done really well clearing the water, haven't they?
Yeah. You know, it's very misleading looking at the amount of rain that you can see on the cameras, compared to the fact that we've had 25 minutes of this, and that the track is still only being classed as damp. So, yeah, definitely some curious conditions for our drivers out there. Although, going on board, everything looks a little less severe than it does on the broadcast cameras. Very, very little spray getting kicked up from the cars in front, which is always something I always struggle with when it was dealing with the spray, because then you see breaking just getting a little bit wide there coming out of the bridges. Just not the car just slid wide. Be interesting to know if anyone has gotten any track warnings at this point. very easy to do, but I know the game has now started treating track limit warnings a little differently in the wet than it used to. I think it's actually a little bit more sensitive than it used to be. I think I'm right in saying that.
I'll go with yeah. You're asking the wrong person.
So I think that's the case. You know, so certainly from watching some of the more popular streamers, I certainly remember hearing some complaints about track limits in the wet from certain big YouTubers.
Even if it's not true, Sam, you've got such an honest sounding voice, people will believe you.
I know. I can convince anybody of anything. But I wouldn't do that. I'm an honest and trustworthy person. Really.
I'm not laughing because I don't believe you. I'm just laughing that you're trying to persuade her. Oh, Eric de Jong goes a bit wrong there.
Manages to get it collected and kept in the right direction. So really good job there.
Is it just everybody we go on with tonight?
It does seem to be that way. When we are just, you know, cursing everybody, unfortunately. But you know,
here in the pits.
These are challenging conditions. John Baton in the pit as well. So yeah, and I suspect then a lot of drivers are going to start coming into the pits now.
Remember this guy?
Oh yeah, Clay Banning now extended his lead to 6.6 seconds over Dave Jr. So just completely in another class. Just looking at his lap times, he is averaging, looks like he's about 3 to 4 tenths per lap quicker than Dave Jr. So it explains how he's been able to pull such a commanding lead over Dave in P2. So yeah, Clay Banning seems to be very, very comfortable driving in these wet conditions, and I think it's going to be a force to be reckoned with for the rest of this championship. His practice times and his showing here this evening is anything to go by. I think he is going to be the one to beat.
You know what surprised me tonight, Sam?
What's that, Chris?
Snetterton is not everybody's cup of tea, not favoured by many drivers. As soon as you see it on the calendar, it's one of the first ones where they start signing out of. Yet we've got 30 drivers taking part in it. I think that's quite amazing, really.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is down to the fact that this is just such a great league. If I do say so, it's of course when we're going to support Simsport Racing International. It is a fantastic league, really, really welcoming drivers of all levels. When I first came into Simsport, Peter Veneer
disqualified.
Currently in pits and disqualified. So my guess is the game will allow you to speed in the pit lane up to a certain amount and will give you a stop code 30. Beyond that, it will disqualify you. So I think Peter Veneer completely and utterly missed his braking point coming into the pits, or just had a bit of a brain meltdown and changed gears before he got out of the pit lane.
Keep pushing.
And has been disqualified.
I'm going to see if I can get an onboard of what actually happened there. Cause...
My guess is going to be pit in. And as I mentioned at the top of the program, that pit limit board is tucked away behind the pit lane wall. It's very, very difficult to see on the entry. Not all drivers make a practice of practicing their pit ins as part of their warm-up procedure coming into a race. I'm just wondering if Peter Vernier has been caught out or had a lockup in the wet conditions, because obviously very few drivers are going to be going into pit lane entry, so that caution track is going to be considerably wetter. And
yeah, I think he was speeding on the way in there.
Yep, and speeding beyond what was allowable by the game. So it's harsh, but that's racing, folks. You do have to be mindful of pit lane speed limits.
I'll just keep an eye on the replay as well in the background and see if he did actually leave. Yes.
So it's looking like vast majority of our drivers have pitted now. Our front runners haven't yet. It looks like everyone from the 11 back. Although interestingly, Oliver Anderson, who had that very, very early lap 1 disconnect, who does still need to serve his pit stop, is still out, and my guess is that he's going to be going long.
He does seem to be speeding now. He's going first gear according to that, but instant DSQ.
So that's interesting. I wonder if he kept it in first, but just didn't happen to have his pit limiter on. He might have accidentally clicked his pit limiter off during the pit stop. Depending on how he has his wheel calibrated, it could be relatively easy to do.
Or he was it looked like he was so late coming into the pits that he just braked and managed to get under the pit limit.
And didn't engage it. Yeah.
He was quite close to the end of the pit lane for his garage. So. I'm sure he'll tell us sometime.
Yep. So just noticed, Dave Jr. Was in P2, now in P5, having served his pit stop. It's highly unlikely that any time is going to be gained or lost to Clayt Vanny, who is still yet to pit. The undercut can sometimes play a factor here, but I wouldn't have thought it would have played a factor in the wet, if I'm perfectly honest.
As you normally are.
Was that John passing a back marker? Was that our safety position?
Sorry, no. So John Betton and Nick Vargas. Nick into the final corner went a bit wide. May have been assisted by John.
Right.
And as they were coming up the main straight, John seemed to lift off a bit and let Nick back past. So.
Give him the position back. Excellent. So it's something that we do like to see is really great sportsmanship like that on track.
And Pete Vanier's just popped into the YouTube chat. Thanks for that explanation. Yeah, he disqualified. Stupid mistake. Turned off the pit limiter instead of the engine.
Yeah. Easily done. I've done it myself. And yeah, after I made that mistake, I reprogrammed my wheel so that my ignition and pit limiter were on opposite sides of the wheel.
Now I don't even have my ignition on the wheel. I have it in a separate button box. Not that it does me any good.
Ah. all fancy pants with a button box. I don't have one of those.
Sounds like somebody's after one for Christmas.
No, I don't do quite enough racing to validate that. Although Tim Kroll looks like you've just got a little bit sideways coming out of Murray's onto the straight, and I believe that is Chris Vickers making the overtake in easy space before turn 1 at Riches.
No. Sorry.
Nope.
Sorry to correct you, that was Tim Kroll going past Nelson Ambrinosa.
Right.
Chris Vickers, if you recall, is in the John Player special car that I'm not allowed to say.
Of course, yes. Why are you not allowed to say?
Well, it's advertising of cigarettes, isn't it?
Oh.
I suppose it's frowned
Well,
upon these days.
You know, it's not like we have sponsors that although we do have sponsors. So yes, you are correct. Doing the correct thing.
Don't tell them. They don't listen to us anyway, Sam. We're all right.
No. And I'm pretty sure everybody watching on YouTube is going to be nice and forgiving of us the fact that we accidentally mentioned a evil cigarette company. But it's not our fault, you know.
I think you might be going slight exaggeration there. Evil. Now we'll get sued by them.
Well,
How dare you brand ours? Anyway, shut up, Chris.
But yeah.
Before I dig a hole even deeper.
It's not our fault. The drivers put these lovely, beautiful liveries on these cars, and we could say it's in homage to legendary race teams of old, which I know a lot of our Moto 11 cars do tend to do. So yeah, let's just leave it there and concentrate on the racing, shall we, Chris?
Yeah, let's crack on. Yeah.
Danny DeSwart done in P25 with MV. It's MV.
Marcel Viz.
Marcel Viz. Even in the my timing board is still showing as Marcel V. Switched into this, but yeah.
I think that's just because I know. Oh, he gets a bit of a bump.
Yeah, a little bit late on the brakes there by Danny DeSwart, but Dennis Verhoeven just manages to keep it in a straight line, but does go a little bit wide coming out of Montreal. It's now turning into a three-way battle for P24.
I think, to be honest, that's Oliver at the back there. So he's a couple of laps down on these guys.
Ah, right,
yeah.
Okay.
Just to confirm that.
Thank you very much for his confirmation.
Have the majority of drivers completed their pit stop? No, we haven't. First, fourth.
So Ryan Walker's in the pits now.
Yeah.
And
Quiet and Sandoval are the only two that haven't.
right. And just as we speak, Clayton Banny is now coming into the pit lane.
So I suspect if they've been on these tyres, well, if they've been on these tyres since the start, what type of stupid statement was that going to be then? I suspect if
been on these tyres at the beginning.
Yeah. Oh, dear me.
It's late in the day, Chris. It's fine.
It's been a long day. These tyres may have worn considerably now and need replacing, especially if it's a damp track still, which it is.
I know. It is. It's ridiculous. 40 minutes of consistent light rain. Yes, okay, the track's 29 degrees, but I'm just stunned that the track is still showing as down. and it's got to be making things really, really difficult in the cockpit. And these tires are not meant really for these conditions. This is kind of a halfway house of, you know, too wet for dries and too dry for wets. So, yeah, I do not envy drivers that are out in this at the minute, trying to figure out tire pressures for this must be difficult enough.
Here's a question for you, Sam. Do you
Yes.
think any of our drivers may have accidentally had a pre-pit stop setting that might have involved dry tyres? Or do you think
Possible.
nobody could make that mistake?
It is possible. I know it's something that I do, is that I will set tires and fuel days before a race, based on, you know, what my race pace is on a clear track, because I've run out of fuel in the past because I can't calculate fuel on the fly. So I do set all of that before I go into a race. So it is quite possible that, you know, especially if somebody was under pressure or had a lot going on in the cockpit, that they just forgot to change their tires from dries to wets. It is possible. Looking at everybody's lap time, I don't think anyone has done that, though.
I was just throwing a little thing out there.
Yeah, you know, it's easily done. But yeah, I don't think anyone in tier 1 level has done that. But something I've just noticed during the round of pit stops, Dave Jr. has managed to get about 2.5 seconds back on plate banning. Not that it's, you know, he's still, you know, nearly 5 seconds back, but you know, there was a little bit of time gained from Dave Jr. pitting earlier than during that pit stop session. But with just under 17 minutes left to go in this race, where on earth is this race gone? Blimey.
It's gone very quickly, hasn't it?
It has gone very quickly, yes, and certainly within the lap times that Plate has been putting in, I think the Junior is not going to be able to gain that 5.5 seconds back on Blaney, and we'll come home for a very, very comfortable P2 position, seeing as Sam Spenkling is another 3.9 seconds behind him, as they're just coming up to the bridge, just coming down then the Bentley Straight heading into Brundle.
Wonder who that corner's named after.
I wonder.
Must be Alex.
The majority.
Must be Alex.
Must be.
I'll tell you something. I'll tell you lots of things, whether it makes any sense or not, it's a different matter. But John Baton's been in the pits for a little while now. I suspect he's got some damage. Oh, he may have retired. Because he'd already served his pit stop, and he's showing us 3 laps down now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite possible. Might have to see if he potentially had an off or bit of a excursion with the wall, but a shame for John. Did really well in the race at Hungaroring, coming in second. So shame to see John not take the checkered flag if he is indeed going to be staying in the pit. But that should give Oliver Anderson another position up. So finishing. So give Oliver Anderson up into P27. Where is Oliver on track at the minute?
He's here. Well, he's not on the track now. Now he is.
Just coming into bomb hole, so when he comes around the start-finish line, he will overtake John, because they are both currently showing as being on lap 20. So that will give him an extra position. So yeah, even though he had a disconnect, came back into the server several laps down, has given him a couple of places.
So that's both Sim Racing Holland cars seemingly retired. If Peter, if you're still in the chat, if you can tell us what's happened to John, that'd be great. We can tell the world of YouTube, if you know, of course.
Yeah, I would expect that teams are going to be on voice chat during events like this. I know when I'm racing with teammates, when we're always in a Discord voice chat, just to keep everybody up to speed on what's going on, allowing for safe passes and overtakes between teammates, because then the last thing you want to do, especially as a back marker, is to take out your teammate who's a lap up on you, which I have done before.
Bit of close race here with Ryan Walker, your co-commentator from last season, and Andrew Richardson.
Yeah, Ryan doing quite well. Currently sitting in P17. Just looking to see. Wait. I believe that's P9 in silver. I can't see higher than P6, but I think that's P9 in silver. Am I right, Chris?
Bear with me, please, caller. It's not on the screen. I can see it at the moment. Bear with me. Let's do that. So yeah, De Jong is the leader in the semi-pro class.
So yeah, that is P9 in semi-pro for Ryan Walker. So good, really good showing from him. Where did Ryan place last round out? He missed the last round, didn't he?
I thought he took place.
I believe he did.
So I do stand to be corrected.
Yeah. I'm not seeing him on my list, so I don't think he made the last round. But I might be wrong.
3 cars off.
Yeah, it looks like there's been a bit of a pile up at Palmer, just on that infield section.
I'm just going to go quiet for a few minutes.
Car 26 on, oh dear, that's Danny Swart. And it looks like he's very, very stationary, even though there's a bit of a gap, so I've got a feeling that's going to be some fairly considerable damage, unfortunately. Doesn't seem to be returning to the pits, so maybe he's had possibly a technical issue. The cars that we're on board with in a minute, it's going to be coming around to that sector of the track shortly. So
There we go. This is what's happened.
okay.
So Patrick Tractor's the middle car here. Nicholas Roder in front. Byron's a bit wide.
Just misses is braking, but then just stops.
So yeah, it looks like
Right.
he's just sitting at the side of the road now. He's still showing us.
Yeah. It's still showing in the same position. He hasn't been returned to garage. The car is safely off the side of the track, but it does mean that there are going to be yellow flags waved in that sector. Very unusual. I'm wondering if there's been a technical issue that he's not able to get back to the pits.
Possible.
Very
He
odd.
did collect Patrick. What we thought was he might have misplaced his braking point. Could be a disconnect. And he's just hit Patrick, spun him out, and then the car just carried on. But there again, if it was a disconnect, he wouldn't be showing at all, would he?
And he wouldn't. And a disconnect during, while driving, the car would have sailed off, not come to a stop. So very, very unusual.
Unless it's
Not really sure what's going on there.
Unless something's happened with his wheel or his equipment. We don't know, we're guessing at.
He is completely disconnected from the server, so not even gone back to pit lane. So I'm wondering if maybe he had a keyboard failure, because then he wouldn't be able to click escape to head back to the pits.
Well, perhaps not.
We're just on board with Nelson and Bernoza, just getting collected, coming out of...
That was by Nick
Where
Vargas.
is that? It's just coming out of Augie's.
Oh, I thought Ryan was going to make the move then. Very brave, as he would have done. That's Sander Vale behind him in the green car.
Yeah, putting quite a considerable amount of pressure on Ryan as well, so you have to keep an eye on his mirrors as well as trying to get the move on Andrew Richardson. It's very difficult in those circumstances to be looking in two places at once. It's very, very easy to miss a braking point slightly and run into the car in front because you're paying attention to what the car behind is doing. I find it very, very difficult to be in the middle of a three-car battle like this. You just don't really know where to concentrate.
Well, but Ryan does seem to be putting quite a lot of pressure on Andrew as well. Just before the braking zone, but Andrew seems to be better on the brakes, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've noticed that with the McLaren. The McLaren does seem to be really, really good on its brakes, especially compared to the BMW and the Ferrari. Certainly the BMW, it's a much heavier car. It does tend to be a little more sluggish on the brakes, but the BM will probably have a little bit more straight line power, which is why he's catching up coming into the corners. But yeah, very evenly matched then the battle between these two at the minute.
Not many battles on track either at the moment.
No, this one does seem to be our main one at the minute. There's a little bit of a battle further back with Andreas Galen, although he's just brought back off of Nikolai Schroeder. Although Sam Spenkelink has caught up with Dave Jr. up at the front, so giving Dave something to think about that gap. 0.4 of a second as they battle for P2. Especially considering we're just coming into the final 5 minutes of the race. Stem. It's gonna do quite a lot of benefit to his championship standing if he is able to beat Dave here today. Dave is currently sitting in P1 and Sunshine Lake in P3. I don't think Clay Van is going to get enough to overtake Dave in the championship. That's definitely going to put him right up in contention. But depending on how this battle between Sem and Junior pans out, and it does look like Sem has managed to get the move done. It's just a question of whether he can pull away. It does look like he is.
I wonder if Dave's had an incident somewhere, because the gap to Clay now is 12.4 seconds, and it was down to 4.5 at one point, wasn't it? That's straight after the pits.
Yeah, so his last lap time was a 53.6, and Sem's was a 53.1. Clay is still doing 52.8. So yeah, it is possible that he's potentially collected a little bit of damage somewhere. But yeah, then the gap between P1 and P2 now just about 9 seconds according to my timing, although the game is saying 12.4. I think my timing program's having a little bit of a hissy fit. It's just gone up to 19 seconds and is now back down to 9, so I don't think I'm going to rely on that for timings.
It really is yo-yoing, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Right, let's not look at that. Let's concentrate on what the game is actually showing us. So Sem is pulling a little bit of a gap to Dave Jr., but not quite enough. He's certainly going to have a battle on his hands for the remaining just over 2 minutes of the race, and it looks like the rain is going to stop just as the race finishes. So interesting timing on behalf of the weather gods there. And again, the track never making it to full wet.
And I don't think it's going to make it to full dry either.
No, this is literally the oddest race I have ever seen when it comes to the weather. We've had an hour of consistent light rain, but the track has never made it to full wet. So really, really interesting. Great job from all of these drivers to be able to navigate these very odd conditions. Ryan Leach goes just a little wide going into Montreal, but manages to keep the position on Regan Mitchell, though Regan putting all sorts of pressure in that fellow Lamborghini. Ryan Leach doing very well, sitting in P2 in the semi-pro class at the minute, as we just come into the final minute of the race. I believe the leader is now on the final lap.
He has just started it.
So it looks like Ryan Leach is actually going to make a move on Justin DeLong, coming down the back straight. Braves to try and go around then the outside. Does manage to get it slowed down in time, but has put him back into the clutches of Regan Mitchell again.
Battle Lamborghinis.
I think then that Porsche is struggling a little bit on power. Regan side by side. Coming into Murray is not something that I would ever attempt to try. But Ryan manages to hold the position for what will be his final lap.
a battle. Itzy started to join in on this on the final lap as well.
Yeah, that's Medina catching up in the back in P9. It's currently P3 in the semi-pro class.
What's happened? Camera view was that rubbish, Chris?
Too many fences in the way.
Yeah. I'm famous for my scenery. In the bottom corner you'll see that Clyde's about to cross the start-finish line to win the race.
Yeah. And Stem is just coming down on the start-finish to finish his lap as well, taking P2 with Dave Jr. close behind in P3, and that is also your pro podium as well. Luca Filippi, just coming out of Murray's to come down the start-finish straight to take P4.
Ben Mullard now. Taking 5th place. Behind him is this battle. Justin de Jong in 6th. Ryan Leach 7th. Regan Mitchell 8th. Itzy Medina 9th. I'll try and find somewhere where we've not got cars off all over the track.
And I've got to say a big shout out to Dennis Workman. Really, really fantastic drive from Dennis to finish P18 after finishing qualifying at the back of the pack. So really, really good result for Dennis Workman there. Oh, that's ambitious. Oh, just as I was giving him props, it goes and
He's
absolutely
waiting, though.
murders Nelson Ambrinosa, but he is doing the right thing. It looks like he is waiting for Nelson to come back. Really, really great to see. Yeah, next time I shall wait until he crosses the line before I start hyping up a driver. So, very, very interesting race. All kinds of weirdness going on there with the weather. Yeah. What's your opinion of that?
I thought it was, as we suspected at the start, it was going to be a good midfield battle, and we weren't proven wrong. The surprise at the end for me was that Sem and Dave Jr. were battling for the 2nd place, whereas previous to the pit stops, I think there was a 4-second gap. So something either happened that we've missed, or Sem just drove really well too after the pit stop.
Just making a note of our finishing order, ready for when some drivers come into the commentary box. And right, we currently have Clayton Banny and Sam Speckling that I'm going to bring in. Right. Good evening, Clayton Banny. Evening, Sam Spankelink. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. Hello.
Clayt, if I can start with you. P1. Okay, congratulations. And I believe this is your first race of the championship. You missed round one, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Thank you.
So definitely a big warning shot to everyone in the championship. Fantastic, an amazing lap time, really commanding race. Um, how was it from the cockpit?
I mean, first of all, qualifying was really enjoyable because I felt, yeah, the car was quick and I could just push it even more and more every lap. So there it was amazing. It was a shame that I wasn't even, let's say, 1 or 2 tenths quicker, but still, I mean, I'll take pole, and the car felt great. Same for the race. I mean, at the start, to be fair, Dave was quite tricky to defend from. At the end, I could see, at the start, I could see that he could keep up with me, but once he locked up, make the mistake, I could create a little gap, and from there on, I realized, okay, I've got pace, car feels good, so I could just keep on building, keep on building. Maybe I stayed out even too long before the first pit stop because I ran into traffic and my tires were gone. I mean, I messed up my tires anyway because the PSI was way too high at the start, but I managed with DC, so in the end I could still control the pace and I knew I had some pace in hand, so I never, luckily it's one of the few races where I didn't really have to worry.
So I wanted to touch on that actually. So how did you manage the tires with the somewhat odd conditions? I don't know if how close an eye you were keeping on the track conditions during the race, but the track never actually went to full wet. It stayed damp the entire race. So did you find that was having a big impact on your tires and your tire management?
Yeah, pretty much, because my tire pressures really were quite too high, let's say, throughout the entire race. So at the start, I instantly realized this, and I was thinking, okay, you know what? I'm gonna up the TC just 1 click more in order to just save my tires, because the strategy was, okay, put as much fuel as I can for the start, because I don't know if it's gonna get dry or not after half an hour. In the end, it didn't, so I just could, let's say, pit a bit earlier, but it was good, let's say, to have that buffer and to have, let's say, that gap as well, so it allowed me to run a couple of laps longer.
Yeah. Did you get much wet practice during the week before the race?
Oh, not at all. It was just first wet driving, but luckily I could just make a couple of setup changes. I mean, I upped the front right height by 1 click and I reduced the front toes by a bit, but other than that, it was pretty much a dry setup. And luckily, the 296 is a car that can drive well even in the wet.
Well, very impressive. So, are you? Our next round out is obviously Kyalami. Is that a track that you enjoy driving?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been competitive there before, so I'm really looking forward to it. I've driven a race with this car already on this track, so yeah, should be quite enjoyable one.
Yes. Right. Well, we definitely look forward to seeing you out next round. Thank you very much for joining us, and thanks. Congratulations for a fantastic race.
Thank you.
Sem. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. Yeah, going pretty well. The race itself wasn't too eventful, apart from the start and the finish, but yeah, decent result, I guess.
So, how did you manage the track conditions? Was there much tweaking of the setup on the grid once you saw that it was raining?
No, not really. I actually only put wet tires on from the dry setup. The rain was pretty light, so I didn't bother changing stuff. I mean, I could have probably made the car a little bit safer, but I had not really driven the Audi in the wet, so I was like, okay, I can change stuff, but it will probably make it worse. So let's leave it as is and see how it goes. And the car was decent to drive. I mean, the Audi is pretty hard on the rears, so it's yeah, you need to really manage the throttle, which was difficult, and yeah, the tires would get a little bit hot on the rear sometimes, and the grip was definitely gone halfway through. So once I was on new tires, it was a lot better. I could adjust the PSIs a little bit for the pit stop, which cost me some time today because I had to click down a lot on my setup. PSIs were way too high, but I think it helped me in the end because the tires in the second stint were a lot better. I could drive like half a second faster, so I made up the gap to Dave, and in the end, yeah, I think his tire pressure, his tires were probably gone or something. But I see that he's also joined, so maybe he can explain later.
Yeah, I did see just how quickly that gap it came down during the final stages of the race. Did you find it difficult to manage your tire pressures during that first stint, not really knowing what the weather was going to be doing?
Yeah, I did the same thing as Clyde. I took a lot of fuel, hoping, or well, not hoping, but making sure that I wouldn't be having to pit early when the track would possibly dry up. But once I saw halfway that the track wasn't going to dry up, I thought like, okay, let's just go for new tires and make sure that we have some renewed grip. So I had to do some tire management in the first stint because, yeah, as I said, the Audi's pretty rough on the tires. Probably could have had a little bit more pace, but yeah, in the end, it didn't really matter. Clyde was way too fast in these conditions. Was a bit, yeah, wasn't too happy with my qualifying. I definitely had more in it. Little bit of mistakes on track limits during fast laps. I had a low 0.4 on the delta, but then went wide, and it cost me that lap and also the next lap. Apparently, if you go wide in the last turn, so. Then that kind of ruined my qualifying. So P6, I expected it to be a horrendous race, but luckily I could make up to P2.
Well, excellent. Well, then, thank you very much for joining us. We've got a few other interviews to get through, so look forward to seeing you out at Kyalami in 2 weeks' time. So thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Dave Jr., welcome to the commentary box. How was the race for you, P3?
Hey, thank you. Yeah, it was exciting. To say the least, the rain certainly caught us out.
Well, hello.
Yeah, we wasn't expecting to have the rain. But nevertheless, we made best with what we can do with the tire situation. Client, he was just a bit too quick for us. Like, I made a slight mistake, and then we couldn't recover the time from there. He was just gone. But yeah, it started off pretty nice. We tried to give it a go there, and then the race converted over to with Sem being a real issue for me now. So I saw he was catching me. Certain areas I was struggling, and then we had a really good pit stop, gained some time there. I did go with fresher tires, but yeah, we just couldn't hold on at the end. Just the tire drop off, I guess, with the setup I had or whatnot. Just yeah, dropped off pretty bad at the end of the stint, and we couldn't hold on for one of these turns. I just outbraked myself a little bit in the wet, and yes, I made a move on us, so much grip, and yeah, the move was done. But nevertheless, great time out on track. You know, wonderful conditions, although it caught us out. But yeah, can't complain with that podium.
Yeah, and always makes for interesting driving conditions. So, Kyalami next round out, is it a track that you do well at?
Nice. Kyalami, yeah, it's not a pretty nice track, pretty decent track. We have had a few good endurance races at this track, but that was way back when I was in the Boatley. So we'll see what the 296 feels like over here. Shouldn't be too bad though. The car is fairly decent at pretty much all the tracks I've been at so far. So hope to try and get back on the podium.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Look forward to seeing you out next round out. So congratulations on your P3.
Yeah, thank you so much. And
Thank you.
well done to you, sir.
Thanks. Justin De Jong. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening. I'm fine.
Excellent.
was,
So our P1 in the semi-pro class. So how were the difficult conditions for you?
I was on the dry setup, but I did it on the wet tire. But in the beginning, it was not too bad. But yeah, I just had no grip, and even when the rain was a little bit less, it was getting worse. I couldn't at mid corner. I could not have speed or hang in the tires or something like that. So it was slippery all the time. Yeah, it was so difficult to drive and to keep it on the track.
Yeah, it was definitely very, very challenging conditions. I don't know if you were keeping a close eye on the track conditions, but it never actually made it to full wet. So how did you manage then the tire pressures um, mid stint?
Trying to cool them down as much as possible, being very careful at corner entry and try to get a good exit all the time, and it was my only focus and the only thing I could save myself because I fell back on P13, I think, something like that, so I had to fight my way back to get up front again. And at P6 it was very hard because Ryan Lees was on my rear bumper all the time, and I had to defend just focus on the exit. That was my only thing to do.
Well, it's been very, very good advice. Focus on the exit. So with Kyalami and the next round out, looking forward to it?
Yes, I tried to push there just for 5 laps or something like that, and it felt it felt good. You know, I don't know if it will be competitive enough, but the track and the flow in the track, it feels really good. So looking forward to Kyalami.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to seeing you out there, and congratulations on your semi-pro win, and look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you very much.
Sam?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Sam, just a quick reminder. You wanted to
Yes.
ask Justin a question.
Oh, yes, I did. Yes. Justin.
Yeah.
Is the other DeLong driver, are you guys related? Brothers?
No,
No
we're not.
relation?
No relation, but
No
just
relation.
friends.
Okay.
Just friends like Sean Baton and
So it's just coincidence that you both have the same last name.
it's just coincidence, and I know him
Okay.
from another community, so and we started
Okay.
driving together now. So no family relationship or something like that.
Right. Okay. We were wondering while we were commentating, and I was going to ask you in Discord during the week, but Chris has just reminded me to ask you now. So thanks for letting me know.
No problem. Have a
Okay.
good day, and thanks
Thank
for
you.
the commentating on the race.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye now. Jits Medema. First of all, Jits, am I pronouncing that correctly?
You're really close, actually.
I'm
Yeah.
close. Oh, good. So how should I be pronouncing it? I do try.
Well, in typical Dutch, it's Jitse Miedema, but a lot of English and American people are like Jitse Miedema. So you're pretty close. You're pretty good.
Jitse Medema. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Right. So, Jitse, how was the race for you?
Well, I started off being really cautious, just keeping my nose clean, and didn't know what kind of pace I had. I knew from practice that it was close to the pace that Leach had, but yeah, he was nowhere near. So I just kept my nose clean, and at some point Justin came by, and I just let him through because I know from practice that he's pretty good. And I drove behind him and thought, hey, I got the same pace as him, and maybe even a little bit quicker. So I started attacking a little bit, just seeing if I could push him into a mistake, and I couldn't. I just couldn't. I noticed exactly what he explained. No mid-corner speed, but mega exit. So yeah, for me there was no way to overtake. So I decided, okay, let's just follow him around, and we gained a lot of time on the group ahead. So I was pleased with that strategy that I made.
Excellent. And how did you find managing the tires in the damp conditions?
Well, I kind of did the same thing as De Jong did. Just keeping the cool on the straights, and I didn't really have to think about the entries or the exits, because I basically used the traction control for that. If the rears got too hot, I +1 on the traction control, and that was basically my way to do it.
Excellent. It's a really, really good tip, actually. So with Kyalami, the next round out, this is a track that you know really well. I know it's a lot more of a popular track than Snetterton.
Yeah, I drove it quite a bit in the past, but I didn't drive it after the big update. So, yeah, I think it's kind of a new thing for me again.
Okay. Well, definitely looking forward to seeing how you get on at Kyalami for the next round. Thank you very much for coming to join us, and thanks for giving us some great racing.
You're very welcome, and thank you for the live stream commentary.
My pleasure. So, have we got time for one more, Chris? I've just noticed that Ryan Leach, our semi-pro P2 driver, has just come into the waiting box. Have we got enough time?
Why not?
Why not? Let's pull him in. Hello, Ryan. Just in the nick of time. How are you doing?
Yes, good, thanks.
Excellent. So, P2 in semi-pro, really good outing. How was the difficult conditions for you?
Yeah, it wasn't too wet, but it was the tyres overheating.
Yeah.
Was the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And losing out in the pit stop to Justin. That was super frustrating because I was ahead before the stop.
We didn't actually notice that in the box. So what happened? Did you have damage that you were fixing, or did you just not
Yeah, I had 3
not hit your
seconds.
marks?
3 seconds of damage. Me and Justin touched on lap 2. He gave me 3
Right.
seconds of damage, and in hindsight, I shouldn't have repaired it really.
Yeah.
But I didn't notice till it was too late.
It's always the way, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's something that's been, a hot topic across all of the interviews is how you manage the tire pressures and tire temperatures with the track never actually making it to full wet. But of course, everyone driving wet tires. So how were you managing that yourself?
Yeah, it was a bit of a juggle because obviously we didn't know if it's going to dry out for the second half of the race. So you've got to, we had to guesstimate the pressures for the start, and then fuel up enough to go at least 35-40 minutes to make sure we're not going to, lose out by under fueling and it drying out in the last 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then just trying to stay on the wet bits of the track. I think you could see we were all on start finish straight right over to the left, all on the back straight, all right over to the right, on a big line.
Yeah.
The pressures for the second stint were okay. Temperatures were high. But once as soon as we saw it wasn't going to stop raining, then it was easy decision to box at 25 minutes remaining.
Yeah. So had you gotten much wet practice in during the week, or was this a little bit of a surprise?
5 laps yesterday.
Right. Okay. Oh, well, it's better than some of our drivers.
It is, yeah.
So.
Yeah, all 3 of us from the same team did the same 5 laps yesterday, and thinking that it's not going to rain. And yeah, how wrong were we?
So I've got to ask, knowing that you've got teammates who are competing in the same championship, are you guys all on voice chat during the race?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, figured you would be.
Yeah.
Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, some guys prefer it quieter, some guys chat away the whole race. But,
yep.
Yeah, I don't mind it either way.
And are you looking forward to Kyalami, your next round out?
Yeah, should be good. It's not the strongest track for me or the car, really, but yeah, we'll make the most of it.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us for the interview, and thanks for great racing, and we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the commentary and the stream.
Thank you. Right. Accidentally pulled myself out of the commentary box there for a minute, but I'm back.
I wonder why I heard the door slam.
So, yeah, it sounded like it was really, really challenging for all of our drivers trying to maintain tire pressures, tire temperatures, on all of that. So, yeah, difficult race for our drivers tonight, but I think everybody did amazingly well, considering the conditions. I would have just been an absolute mess. I probably would have, had a tire blowout or just constantly running off track with no grip.
I'd second that. I'd be doing pretty much the same. So we'd be at the back together holding hands.
Yes, yes. Solidarity at the back. Right, so we are coming up to the end of our stream for this evening. But before we go, just want to keep you up to date as to what's happening in the world of SSRI. So this Thursday, 28th, we have a race room event going on at Gillerassen, when we believe that's how it's pronounced. Anybody in YouTube, please feel free to correct me if I've completely butchered that name. And then next Tuesday on October 3rd, we've got GT3 Championship returns for Tier 2 at Kyalami, followed by the following week on the 10th for our Tier 1 guys. Our next endurance race is going to be the 8 Hour of Monza, which is happening on Saturday the 14th. And we have some extra special news coming in the form of our annual charity race. That's the word I was looking for. Which is going to be happening on November 11th, which is going to be a 24-hour of Kyalami. You can find all of the details on Discord of how to join up, register a team. If you would like to donate, giving page is live already, I believe. And Chris, there is an extra special reason why we've chosen the Christie charity this time out. Do you want to give us a little bit of background?
Yeah, certainly. As anybody on YouTube can see in the bottom right-hand corner of the poster advertising the event, it says in honour of Gareth P. Longdon. Now, Gareth is a colleague of myself, who in December 2021, 2 days before Christmas, just collapsed at work. No outlying symptoms or anything like that. Got rushed to hospital and was diagnosed with a brain tumour. He was operated on as most of these tumours are, whilst he was still awake, which is a difficult concept to, I suppose, get you, pardon the pun, but get your head round. And then underwent chemo and radiotherapy during the course of last year, leading up to, in July, he did a bike ride, collecting money for the Christie charity, and persuaded the surgeon that operated him to take part in the bike ride and raise more funds as well. Gareth then was buoying himself up to come back to work, and did so in January of this year, on a phase to return to work. Sorry for all the ums. And whilst on his phase to work, it was over a period of 8 weeks, something like that. He did his first full week back in work, and then went for what he thought was a regular scan to see how how his treatment was coping. Only to be given the rather devastating news that the tumour had returned and was a lot more aggressive. So he's undergone a second operation to remove the tumour, and gone through chemo and radiotherapy again, but has very recently they've withdrawn all his treatment, which now means that he's in palliative care at home with his parents. So when I suggested to the admin team that we sort of took up the mantle for the fundraising that Gareth couldn't do this year, and hold our event as a fundraiser for the Christie charity. The whole admin team was unanimous in agreeing with it, so that's what we're doing. That's when the date is the 11th of November. As with all the other 24-hour charity events we've run, the teams will be paying a fee to join, but that whole fee goes straight to the Christie charity. The admin team, the stewards, the broadcasters, the commentators, none of them expect to take any funds for assisting during the 24 hours, so which means that we can pretty much guarantee that 100% of the funds goes to the Just Giving page, and they obviously pass all those funds on to Christie charity. So like you to all join us as on the 11th of November, and sorry to say it, but please dig deep. I'd like to raise as much money as possible. At the moment the target's £5,000, and I think we're about £275 raised so far in just over a week of the Just Giving page going live. Yeah. So that's it.
We'll obviously have plenty of information going out on a regular basis, and keep you all up to date. But a very, very worthwhile charity. As I was chatting to Chris before the broadcast, my aunt pretty much went through the exact same situation that Gareth is experiencing. So the work that this charity does is invaluable. So I'm really, really glad that this is a charity that's being supported for the charity race this year round. So yeah, really looking forward to the event, and we will keep everybody updated as to new developments, how we're getting on. We're probably going to have some outlying and things alongside the race. I know last time we had some giveaways and things like that, and some auctions that would be good if we can do again. But we will keep you updated on all of that information. But for now, that is Snetterton round 2 for Tier 1 done and dusted. Really, really looking forward to seeing you all back in the YouTube chat next week for our round at Kyalami. If you're not already, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so that you get notified of all of the events that we stream here live on YouTube from SSRI. So from myself and the lovely Chris Hill joining me in the commentary box, thank you very much for joining us, and have a fantastic evening.
Thank you very much, everybody. Good night.